The story opens with the narrator, an emotionally fraying space marine, delivering a final confession or combat log in a low, grim tone. He identifies himself by name, rank, and chapter, and admits he is the last survivor of his company. The sense of immediate dread is palpable. Something has gone horribly wrong on a mission that was never meant to be remembered. He recalls fragmentary, disturbing memories, time loss, missing faces, and a sense that his mind is no longer fully his own. He hints at forbidden knowledge and a betrayal cloaked as a directive. There's talk of a vault ancient, sealed, and waking, and of voices on the Vox that shouldn't be there. The narrator shifts to recounting the mission's origins. They were dispatched to Helroth X, a long-dead forge world lost to the stars, under orders to secure and investigate a subterranean vault complex supposedly abandoned since the Horus Heresy. Accompanying the squad were Imagos of the Adeptus, Mechanicus, his skittery, and a silent, cold inquisitorial observer. From the moment their drop pods entered Helroth's polluted atmosphere, the squad knew something was wrong. The descent felt too long, the Vox already began to fail, and the surface was blanketed in black ash. The vaults beneath the planet stretched endlessly, built in ways that mocked imperial geometry, the stones seeming to absorb light and sound as they descended into the complex. Strange inconsistencies began to appear. Auspex readings blinked out without warning. Entire corridors didn't match scans. The very air grew thick, not with atmosphere, but with a pressure that seemed to coil around the mind. One by one, skittery escorts disappeared without trace. The Space Marines, ever stoic, began to feel it too, echoes in the dark, walls that seemed closer than they were. There were signs of others' armor, remains of unmarked Astartes, decayed, stripped of heraldry and faceplates. Cogitators yielded nothing but static and low-frequency hums that burrowed behind the ears. As time passed, the squad found themselves unable to retrace their steps. Vox signals echoed their own words back to them, sometimes before they spoke. Then came the first death, a brother who vanished between heartbeats, leaving only cracked ceramite and blackened gene seed. Others began whispering to themselves, hearing voices no one else did. One brother fired into the dark at shadows shaped like himself. The Inquisitor remained silent, recording with mechanical eyes, unmoved. The Magos began speaking to the walls, deeper. In the vaults, the team found the core chamber, a cyclopean structure, a sarcophagus or engine of impossible scale and material, humming with anti-light. It pulsed not with life, but with attention. The Magos tried to interface with it, and revealed he knew more than he had said. The vault was not broken, it was sealed for a reason. The Inquisitor's true purpose was not investigation but lockdown. The sarcophagus began to stir. Time splintered. Some of the squad screamed as their flesh tried to rewrite itself. The narrator saw futures that never happened. The chamber collapsed in on itself, yet he survived. His memory fractures. He doesn't remember the escape, only the cold void and silence above. He believes he might have died and been reborn. He might have walked for days or minutes. He might not be himself anymore. He clutches a pouch of gene seed, some of it rotted, corrupted. Alone, abandoned, unsure if the Imperium remembers them or left them to rot. The stars look wrong. His armor feels heavier. Something inside him is changing. The story ends with the narrator making his final log. He speaks directly to the future. If anyone ever hears this, they must not return. Helroth was not meant to be disturbed. What lay inside was not dead. Perhaps it never was. With bitter irony, he wonders if his prayers were answered, not by the Emperor, but by something older. He ends the log transmission with a final, haunting sentence that implies the vault's corruption followed him, and may now be spreading beyond the planet. We were the Iron Revenants. third company descendants of Ferris menace, though our gene seed bore the silence of lost records and quiet deformities. Our apothecary said nothing, but the helix had hardened over the centuries, colder and less forgiving than others. We specialized in siege reclamation and void assaults, sent where silence lingered longest and answers died before reaching Terra. We did not question why we were chosen for Helroth. We obeyed. The signal came from beneath its crust, an encoded Imperial distress beacon, centuries old, wrapped in no known cipher. It pulsed once every 13 hours, never wavering, never decaying. A Mechanicus outpost in orbit had failed to respond. An inquisitorial asset unnamed accompanied us. We were told nothing beyond coordinates and containment protocols. That was enough. Helroth Ix was once a forge world, now a grave. Even from orbit, its surface shimmered wrong like rusting skin under broken glass. Cloud banks of chemical frost stretched endlessly, frozen storms suspended in place like gods had paused the wind. The surface was shattered plateaus of metal ash. Necrocrete ruins twisted as if melted and refrozen mid-collapse. Atmospheric readings were contradictory. Some areas showed breathable air, others lethal radiation. We deployed in staggered formation drop pods, punching through the void with practiced violence. I remember the descent. It was too long. Too loud. The impact shook something behind my eyes. The vox stuttered as we landed. I heard a voice layered under the static. It spoke in my voice. I never told the others. The outpost was gone. Only a crater rim and blackened servo frames remained melted into slag, clawed from within, their cogitator cores hollowed. No signs of Mechanicus personnel. The Inquisitor gave no reaction. The Magos scanned the air, then said something in lingua obscura that made two skittery stiffen and back away. We formed perimeter. Snow fell, but the flakes hissed when they touched our armor. The vault entrance, massive, rune-sealed, and partially collapsed, waited at the heart of the crater, as if unearthed by planetary trauma. Its sigils were older than the Imperium, and deeper than stone. Our Sergeant Varro placed his gauntlet upon it. The door opened. No one had touched the control panel. The way inside was dark, and the warmth of our gene-forged blood could not follow us there. We descended. In silence, save for the hiss of thermal seals and the faint ticking of our Auspex arrays struggling to interpret the walls. The vault did not feel like a structure. It felt like a wound. The architecture was vast, but wrong scale fluctuated. Shadows bled across floor panels, at odds with the lumen strobes. Our boots struck ferrocrete that sometimes rang like glass, sometimes like bone. The deeper we moved, the less our instruments worked. Auspex readings failed entirely at sublevel 4. Vox signals distorted. At first, we blamed interference. Then we heard our own voices replying back twisted echoes of previous transmissions, looped and reversed. Brother Calix reported his autosenses registering movement behind us. When he turned, there was no one. Then he said he saw his own silhouette, watching from a ledge we'd passed 10 minutes before. He did not report it again, dot by the third sublevel. The air grew heavy not with heat or pressure, but with something psychic. Brother Lucian collapsed, growling in Binneric tones none of us knew he spoke. Damagos dismissed it as residual machine spirit resonance. Apothecary Hadron disagreed, noting Lucian's secondary hearts were beating out of sync with each other. That night, if it was night, we made a holdout in a hexagonal chamber, where the walls were etched with circuits that sparked faintly at our touch. I did not sleep, but I dreamt. We all did. Dreams of impossible cities, of a Skiles' sea whose waves beat in time with our hearts. We awoke speaking words we had never learned. Two skittery were missing. Their tracks ended at a blank wall, which still radiated residual heat, Then came the first loss. Brother Dunnick was on point, sweeping Corridor 7 null when his biometrics flatlined. By the time we reached him, he was gone. No blood, no body, just his helm, crumpled as if crushed by an invisible hand, and a smear of black ichor that hissed against our armor. The Vox replayed his scream minutes after he vanished, but layered over it was another voice, metallic, endless, speaking through him. We sealed the corridor. I think we all knew then that we were not alone, and whatever watched us did not sleep or breathe. It waited, and it was learning our names. By the fourth day, if days still passed down there, we lost all contact with orbit. The Vox went from crackling distortion to sheer, dead silence. No confirmation from Fleet Command, no signals from the Mechanicus relay ship. The Inquisitor said nothing, only logged the failure and turned deeper into the vault, as if this had been expected. That was when the halls changed. The Imperial architecture, cold, functional, decayed, gave way to something older. The vault stone became green-black metal, veined with circuitry that pulsed faintly beneath our boots. Ruins appeared, towering pillars of impossible angles, etched in alien glyphs that throbbed at the edge of sight. One chamber seemed larger inside than out. Another echoed our footsteps before we took them. The Magos was enraptured, murmuring. But this was pre-Imperial. He lied. We knew it in our bones. What we found was not human. Casualties mounted. Brother Thalas broke formation during a sweep and attacked Lucien with his combat knife, shrieking that his brother's soul had been replaced. We restrained him, but not before Lucien's armor was breached. The wound festered. Within hours, black filaments laced through his chest cavity, and his blood became translucent. Hadron administered a mercy kill. The gene seed came out black. We stopped speaking of recovery after that. The skittery began to glitch, firing at walls, whispering datasons to the floor. One turned its rifle on the Magos and screamed in vox screech before disintegrating in a burst of light. We left it behind. Then we saw them. They weren't fully. They're just glimpses at first. Eyes burning from the dark. Limbs that phased in and out of existence, as if reality had to adjust to their presence. We thought them xenos at first, perhaps Necron. But they moved wrong, fluid and flickering, wrapped in robes that shimmered like void shields, their forms split between organic and phase metal. When we fired on one, it didn't bleed. It fractured into strands of light and static before collapsing into a pile of empty bone ash. No readable DNA, no vox record of the engagement. And then more came, not in ambush, but watching, following, learning. The Inquisitor called them sleepwalkers. I think even he didn't know what they truly were. The deeper we went, the more. They multiplied, always just out of reach. Our numbers dwindled, not always from violence. Sometimes we simply lost someone. One moment present, the next gone, as if rewritten out of the mission. We stopped calling names. We were alone, abandoned beneath a dead world. And something ancient was waking God. It was the Psyker who fell first. Lexicanum orant val, our soul anchor. In the dark began to falter. He bled from his eyes for 3 hours without dying, whispering names not our own. He spoke of doors beneath doors, of a God buried not to contain it, but to feed it. His wards failed. The light around him bent. Wrong. At times we saw him moving in stillness, frozen in place while his reflection walked past us down the hall. He laughed once, high and childlike, then tore the purity seals from his armor and swallowed them whole. When we found the central vault, he knelt before it and called it Father. We bound him in null chains. I do not know if he died or simply stopped being there. The vault lay beyond a chasm of coiled metal, surrounded by obelisks that hummed with pressure and gravity. It was not built. It had grown some amalgam of Xenos design and warp architecture, fused into matter that defied understanding. Our Auspex simply refused to register it. It was as if it had never been off. The vault pulsed, like something asleep and dreaming of freedom. Warp echoes flooded the air. We saw memories that weren't. Hours fleeting images of battles fought in starless voids, of empires older than the galaxy crumbling in fire. At the edge of my vision, I saw myself die again and again, in infinite variations. The air shimmered with ghost forms, blurred Astartes walking in silence through walls. Some of us saw brothers long dead, speaking with words they never knew. Time ... bent. I watched my gauntlet rust and renew within seconds. Our mission timer looped erratically, resetting every time we blinked. Days passed in moments, or maybe none at all. The Magos revealed then that he had known, that he had read. The Forbidden's vault schematics, pulled from Mechanicus' deep archives, long buried under Mars' red sanctum. This wasn't a weapon cache. It was a sarcophagus, a prison. He believed it to be a shard of something divine. He used that word, divine. I saw Sergeant Varro strike him down without hesitation, but too late. The Magos had interfaced with the vault. Lights flared, the walls screamed, the ground opened. We were inside something alive, and it knew us now, knew our minds, our memories. I no longer trusted any voice I heard, even my own. One of the brothers began killing our wounded. Another tried to flee through a corridor that didn't exist. We caught him looping the same 5 meters of hallway, crying in binary. Loyalty. Unraveled like worn cables, truth, bent under the pressure of a will that wasn't ours. We were coming apart. Not through fire, but through knowing. It began with the sound. Not heard through ears, but felt low and infinite, like the hum of a dying star made intimate and personal. Our thoughts fractured beneath it. Brother Malric turned to face me, opened his mouth to speak, and instead vomited molten ceramite. I do not know if he screamed. The vault split along its seams, not mechanically, but as though reality itself surrendered to the pressure within. Light poured out, not bright, not pure, but dense, hungry. A light that pressed in like water in the lungs. Shapes moved within it. Not forms, not bodies, but impressions. Will given motion, hunger given gravity. The entity had no name we could speak, and yet we all felt it whisper ours back to us. Rearranged. It was awake now, and the vault was not a tomb. It was a cradle. The last of the revenants died in ways I cannot truly describe. Varro fired a crack, charged into its heart, and vanished atomized or devoured by a thought. Lucien's corpse reanimated, laughing in Val's voice, before bursting into a swarm of metallic insects that passed through walls as though matter were air. I saw Phallus scream his childhood prayers before his armor turned inside out, sealing. Him in a sarcophagus of his own ribcage. The walls pulsed with our memories, not echoes, but distortions, my initiation rites. My first kill. The voice of my Primarch recited back to me in mockery, laced with static. I saw my homeworld rendered in ash, again and again, each time more beautiful than it was in truth. It offered me peace. It offered meaning. I turned my eyes away, and in doing so, I think I died. Not physically, not entirely, but something essential was torn from me and given shape in the light. I fled. I did not fight. I fled through blood and impossible geometry, through corridors that led back to themselves, each breath heavier than the last. The entity did not chase me. It did not need to. Its presence coated the air now, folded into reality like a second skin. I do not remember how I reached the surface, only that the sun was dead when I emerged, and the sky above Helroth had cracked. Like ancient bone, I activated the emergency beacon. I carved this confession into the Vox recorder's memory banks, using what remained of my gauntlet. I am not who I was. My thoughts feel inhabited. There are moments when I see their faces in reflections. When I blink and smell the vault's breath again, I should not have survived. Perhaps I did not. Perhaps this message is not mine. They have not come for me. The distress beacon pulses still 3 weeks now, or 30 minutes, or 30 years. Time drips here like oil. The Vox logs show no answers. No retrieval order. No acknowledgement. Only static. And sometimes the static listens. I have stopped transmitting coordinates. If they come, they will die. If they find me, they will find it. I have begun to forget their faces, my brothers, my war kin, but not the sounds. Not the way Hadron's breath faltered when he realized his flesh was turning translucent. Not the way Varro whispered the Emperor's name and wept when he died, or when he thought he died. The vault took that from me. Took truth. I remember Helroth as a garden once, sunlit and green. But that is a lie. I was born on Calf, under earning skies, and yet I feel the grass beneath my feet still. It sings. The Inquisition will bury this. They will send exterminatus, or worse, do nothing. Perhaps they knew. Perhaps this vault is one of thousands. Perhaps Helroth is only a hinge in the greater lock, and now it has begun to turn. What we found was not a relic or a weapon. It was thought made hunger, memory made flesh. It speaks in reflections, infects through remembrance. I see it even now curled behind my own eyes. I have burned the apothecary logs. I have consumed my remaining gene seed. No trace of the company remains. I am the last, and I am not whole. Sometimes, in dreams or waking, I hear it speaking as me, whispering to the void, sending something back through the Vox dot to those who find this record. Seal Helroth dot. Do not investigate. Do not reclaim. Bury it under fire and silence. Because it waits still, not sleeping, not dreaming. Only listening. End transmission log. Sergeant Karth Enevar, 3rd Company Raven Guard. Our prayers were heard, but not by the Emperor.